Hello there, my name's Darren and I'm an equity release specialist, and I'm here to talk to you about some of the concepts behind equity release. One of the big issues that most people are concerned by is the concept of compound interest. But is it really that bad? First, let's talk about what it is. Compound interest is used by most lifetime equity mortgages, and it basically is the interest that is accrued is therefore not being paid. So that at the end of the year, your balance is higher, and then the following year, you have interest on top of that interest. So it's compounding. Put it into concept, give me an idea what it actually looks like. This is how a normal loan would be paid. So let's assume a £100,000 loan. I'm keeping it simple. So £4,000 a year interest at 4%. You pay £4,000 normally on an interest-only mortgage, and therefore at the end of the year, you still owe £100,000. And we do that every year. Let's assume we get right through on this description here. We go 15 years and you paid £4,000 a year interest every year. And you still owe £100,000. You pay off the £100,000. So the total you've paid is £160,000. And that's probably quite a surprise to most people because they don't think about that as they go along. So the number is quite big that you pay on a conventional mortgage. This is on a standard interest only mortgage. If you were looking at a repayment mortgage, the numbers are slightly different because of the way you pay it. But I'm keeping it simple. So if we compare that to a compound interest loan, again, £4,000 interest at 4%, but in this case, no payments made. So the following year, on year 2, for example, the balance is now 104,000. And you will see the interest on year 2 is therefore 4% of 104,000, not 4% of 100,000. So now you're paying 4,160. You make no payments. The following year, the balance is 108,000. So you can see how the compounding interest is building up. We get to the end of year 15, and we have to pay £180,000.94 to pay that off, because that's how much interest has accrued on top of the mortgage. You now owe the original 100,000 plus the interest, 180,094. So you can see there's a bit of a difference between that and the standard one at 160,000. So yeah, so it's not brilliant. It's not the best solution. But of course, the whole purpose if you take an equity release mortgage is to release some extra cash for yourself. So what you don't want to do is necessarily pay cash back out again to only save yourself in real terms a notional amount of interest. Current equity release deals actually mean the effect is much less. I'll give you an idea. Currently, Aviva charges on a current mortgage 2.75 MER, which is the same as 2.79% AER, which means £100,000 actually would only cost £151,099 after 15 years. Now, because the interest rates are low at the moment, even compounded, the effect is less. If you'd actually been paying the interest, the total paid would be £141,850. So it's less than £10,000. Actually, just about £9,000 different. And you've had the benefit of not making monthly payments. So is it really that bad? I'd argue not. I mean, many people think it's an unusual thing to do, but we haven't always had no option like this. In the past, we've had deferred interest mortgages. Back in the 90s, we had a lot of deferred interest mortgages for normally for first-time buyers who didn't pay in the first 12 months or 2 years, and the interest was added on to the mortgage. And then they started to pay. So it never accrued quite as heavily as this did, but it still already began to build. And if you look at what's going on in the world at the moment with the coronavirus, most mortgage lenders are currently offering payment holidays. That's the same concept. They are not charging you the interest. You will still have to pay the interest. It's just not being paid now. So if you have a couple of months payments holiday, the interest will be added onto your mortgage, and then it will gain interest on that interest. So you'll have compound interest for the rest of the lifetime of the mortgage, unless you pay all those missed payments off instantly and the extra interest that should have been paid as well. So compound interest isn't a new thing. It's used all the time, but it's kind of hidden in those deferred or payment holidays, whereas in equities, we're quite open and honest about it. We'll give you a key features illustration that shows you exactly how much you will owe every year for the next 15 to 20 years, depending on how old you are when you start. And that figure is unlike a normal mortgage, it's guaranteed. Now, bear in mind, as I say, the interest rate there for Aviva is very low at the moment. That's quite an indicative market rate at the moment. There's quite a few companies offering rates below 3% or around 3%. If you think about the average interest rate for the last 25 years, that's actually lower than the average interest rate. All right, recently we've had low interest rates, but that's lower than the average interest rate. Given the fact that that's guaranteed for the rest of your life, so I can tell you exactly what you're going to owe, compare that to if interest rates went up a little bit on that first graph, first table. So if we start off at 4% and interest rates went up 5% halfway through, it's at year 5, all those numbers would be wrong and you'd owe more money. And it'd get much closer to the effect of the compound interest that's fixed and guaranteed forever. And given at current interest rates, you can fix it as low as 3%, then you're probably going to be quitting over that 15 to 20 year period, maybe longer. You could live 30 years and it would still be the same interest rate you're paying. Who thinks that? So yes, I would expect you would pay more overall, because currently interest rates on equity mortgages are always a little bit higher than standard mortgage rates, and that's because they're fixed for life. That every fixed rate, if you have a 2-year fixed rate on a normal mortgage, it will be cheaper than a 5-year fixed rate, or a 10-year fixed rate, if you can get one, is actually more expensive. So we're looking at 15, 20, 25, 30 years fixed rate. So it's obviously going to be a little bit more expensive. But it's not that dramatically bad at the moment. But it's still worth considering the compound interest concept. First, we get the raise of income that you want, or the capital you want, to improve your lifestyle in retirement. It's your money after all. There's no risk of being declined. You're trying to get raising mortgage, raise a loan to do an extension or whatever. You may get declined because your income stream isn't sufficient to cover the costs going forwards. Obviously, if you're a pensioner, you've got limited income and you're not going to increase it. You get to live payment free if you wish to, so that's brilliant. Very little point in drawing out, again, from those figures, borrowing 100,000, but then end up having to pay £60,000 back out of your own pocket again. So really, you only gain 40,000 out of that. Whereas if you use a compound option, you gain the whole 100,000 in your pocket. Yes, your nearest and dearest have a smaller legacy, but not as bad as it would seem, because your house price, remember, is still going up. And there's no exposure to possible repossession on this type of mortgage compared to a standard mortgage. A lifetime equity release mortgage is guaranteed that you can live there for your lifetime. Nobody's ever going to ask you to leave. It's guaranteed that your home belongs to you, always. However, if you don't like this concept, you want to make some payments, you can actually pay the monthly payments if you want to. Most lenders allow you to make some kind of contribution to the interest. There are products available at the moment that allow you to pay all of the interest, and you can pay it monthly. So actually, you can pay every year for the next 3 or 4 or 5 years until you decide you don't want to, then stop paying. And that means you've deferred the impact of compound interest quite dramatically, because the number of years it compounds for is what makes the difference. So if you can defer it for 4 or 5 years and then stop paying because you can't afford to or don't want to anymore, then the impact later is you're starting from the baseline as if you just started the mortgage at that point. So the compounding will only be over a 10-year period instead of 15 or 20. So you can do that. And that's why it's important to speak to an equity specialist, someone like myself, who's qualified, has the right experience and knowledge, preferably someone who's a member of the Answers in Retirement Later Life Academy, who's graduated from that, because that means they've got extra skills applied to them as well. But at the very least, look for recommendations, try and find someone who you know that you can trust. They will find you the best deal that's currently available in the market of all the available products, and there are hundreds of products now available, not just the very simple. Some of them are lenders you won't have heard of, but they are all legitimate businesses. It's just they specialise in equity release. You also need to use a specialist solicitor so that your advisor will be able to put you onto the right people and give you a guidance who you should use locally out of the panel that they know are okay. All right. So that's it for today. Hope that was useful, and I'll be following this up next week with a new option.